So thank you so much for coming. This is such an honor to have such a beautiful panel of strong women who are in quite leadership roles in our communities. It is part of a project we've been working on. As an artist myself, I've been project managing it, and as part of the festival Science in the City. So Science in the City is a festival, arts and science festival that happens every year. It's part of Researchers' Night. So it happens over 500 cities around Europe. And every year it has been noticing that the community has not been coming to the festival. So it happens in Valletta, but the Valletta residents aren't coming here. So the festival wanted to somehow connect. We wanted community engagement. And we were trying different things out. We also have our consultant at the back, Grayson, who was helping us. And so finally, we managed to get along with two communities, the school, the government school in Valletta, and the St. Dominic Theatre Group, which together we have been listening to their needs and their wants and turned that into a theatre piece, which this will be held tomorrow. So basically, it is under my lead. This, as an artist, I've been reaching out to communities to give them a space for their voice. So through the theatre piece, these children, these 9-year-olds, through scientific methods of research, analysis, obviously watered down for their age, they have created a piece that can be safely presented at the theatre. It will be tomorrow. It's for families. You can book online. It's part of Science in the City at 7 p.m. at St. Dominic. So the community is talking from within itself about their needs. And it is the beauty of this model of community work. Why this panel of beautiful women? Because they each have their own NGOs. They all do community work in their own stead. And I would like to introduce them so we can also know who they are more closely. And we understand, we have a conversation about their type of community engagement. And if you have questions or comments, this is more of a conversation rather than formal. I'm sorry about the distance, but let's leave it at physical, but let's just talk, okay? So we have Dr. Anna Borch. She describes herself, I love this, academic, researcher, activist, and mother of two. And obviously she's a senior lecturer and former director of the Center for Labor Studies at University of Malta. She's an expert in gender equality with a specialization in matters relating to labor market, diversity and social policy issues, as well as the chairperson of the Malta Women's Lobby. We have Chiara Mariano Bray. She's a psychologist, a personal development specialist. As an independent business consultant and coach, she has experience working internationally with individuals and organizations, and private, public, and not-for-profit sector. Her work is aimed at fostering personal development, change management, empowerment, and multicultural integration in international as well as cultural specific settings. So, very beautiful here to follow. Dr. Wendy Jo Mifsud is a community planner and a lecturer at the University of Malta. She has worked in the public sector at the Planning Authority and is an active member of Dawra Madwarna, a local NGO focusing on placemaking in Malta. We'll learn more about that. And finally, last but not least, Mariella Camilleri is a finance expert with extensive experience in banking, finance, M&A, venture capital, as well as running corporations in marketing, publishing, not to mention collaborating with entrepreneurs in starting their own business, which is very important for women. After returning to Malta from New York in 2013, she joined Business and Professional Women Valletta Malta, a global NGO, which is now 9 years ago. For the last 5 years, she has held the post of president of the organization. So thank you so much for finding the time from your very, very busy schedules to talk to us, and we share experiences and we learn from each other. What I'd like as a result is a networking. We learn about each other's works and we empower each other, because I think that creates further change and in our community. So, just a brief intro about each NGO that you are representing today. Maybe we start from you, Anna.
thank you, Angelique, for the invitation, and I'm very happy to meet you. I currently chair the Malta Women's Lobby. The Malta Women's Lobby is an NGO which brings women's organizations together. We are about 13 organizations. Angel is also part of it. We mostly lobby behind the scenes. We lobby politicians, we issue press releases on issues that we think are of importance to women. And for the last 2 years, on Women's Day, we also issue what is called a Femifesto, where we all the different organizations bring out what they think are the missing things, and we compile a list of, if we see any progress, we monitor it, and unfortunately we are not seeing a lot of progress. And we highlight to government and the opposition and the other parties what still needs to be done. So we're also active at European level. There is a European Women's Lobby, and I represent Malta at the European level of the European Women's Lobby. That's about it. Some of the issues that we're working on, the issue of violence on women, we think that not enough is being done. Unfortunately, not much investment, and the issue is not taken seriously enough. And we've also been working for a number of years on the issue of prostitution, because government is intending to open up prostitution, and we think this will be harmful because it will increase trafficking, the trafficking of mostly girls and women. And we have met in the last years, 4 or 5 different ministers. Every time we have to start from the beginning. They usually have no idea about the subject, but yes, this is the work that we do. Sorry, Angela, I'm taking too long.
No,
Stop me.
This is the space I want to give you. So thank you, and we'll continue with Chiara.
So I work with Spark 15. Spark 15 is a Maltese refugee, the only Maltese refugee-led organization. Antonia also is present, and she works with Spark 15. And what do? We do, the idea is to sort of develop tailored approach to help individuals in fulfilling their potential, in building a new life, in building a new community to which they belong. So there are 4 main areas that we work on. It's education, which is advocacy, and then there's sport. There's a lot of different events and gatherings, which are a great way of meeting new members of the refugee community. And then you would have people from the refugee community that are the leaders and the managers of the projects, with people from the Maltese community or foreigners, like in my case, that would work alongside to make sure that the projects work effectively, that we get enough funding, that we have enough integration in society. And I think the important part is that Spark 15 really is an organization, but at the same time it really does work as a family. So trying to become a point of reference for the people that are misplaced and that really need to have a network of support in many different ways. So with an holistic approach.
Thank you so much. So Wendy, about Dawra Madwarna?
So Dawra Madwarna is an environmental or placemaking NGO. So it started a couple of years ago now, almost 3 years ago, by 3 women, not myself. I was asked at the time, but I had other commitments and I couldn't take it on. But then when I moved to university, I found that it very much aligned with my work at university, and I was able to take on another role at Dawra Madwarna. The words Dawra Madwarna mean our whereabouts. So we tend to focus on how we interact with the spaces we live in. And we try to challenge that. So one of the things that we love doing, for example, is having a picnic somewhere. And just, it's very simple. We just, you don't need nothing for a picnic. You just need your food. And many of us are mothers with young children. I don't know, some we tend to attract that kind of demographic, but it's a safe space for us, really. So there are, many different types of people in the group, but I found it very helpful, even as a mother myself, to meet these people, and we have very much the same mindset, so we share stories. It's a nice space to be in. That's the social space. The physical space where we hold our events or picnics, whatever they are spaces which you wouldn't usually say have a picnic in, but which are perfect for that kind of stuff. So, for example, the ditch in Valletta or some space in Senglia. And it's so unusual, actually. I don't know how many of you have had a picnic in the last year or so. Quite a few of you. So you converted.
But ours involve wine.
Well, they might. Ours might. But yes, we find people taking photos of us like we're some sort of museum exhibit. Like, what are these people doing, sitting down in a public space and eating? So we're trying to challenge this use of space. And as we grow a bit stronger and we're more sure of ourselves and we're more sure of our remit, we're taking part in projects which are like hybrid with, government, university, and working with consultants, and sometimes as consultants ourselves, bringing in Dawra Madwarna to the work at university, kind of really merging the two roles to pool resources, really, and bring volunteers together in this network of professionals who are interested in the built environment. But it could be an artist, it could be a performer, it could be, I don't know, a lawyer, a photographer. Everyone somehow uses the environment. And we come together to challenge the use of space. Yes, that's our remit. We'd like this voice to reach even, decision makers and so on, to really think about how we're using our spaces and whether there's an imbalance
To reclaim.
in who uses it. Yes, exactly so.
Thank you so much. And Mariella, about BPW?
Yes, so BPW, Business Professional Women, is one of the oldest international NGOs that deals directly with the empowerment of women. We enjoy consultative status with the UN and also with the European Parliament. So we use our influence because of our presence to change the laws and benefit women. We are present in over 115 countries, and just in Europe, our membership is about 20,000 members. One of the things that we do is work towards the empowerment of women through education and awareness. Just to give you an example of some of the things that we do here in Malta, every year during the International Women's Day week, we organize a Careers Day, which is specifically, we invite women from every aspect, every level, and every sector in Malta to come and mentor students. The last one we did, we had approximately 300 female mentors, all women, and then we invite schools, they are year 10, Form 4s, to come and speak to these women and inquire more about their potential career. And this year we had about 1,400 students come. It's all in one half day in the morning, and it actually is amazing. You see all these students going around and asking questions. Some of the other things we do, like for example, this year, one of the hottest topic that is, at least for me personally, is the payment pension gap in Malta, which is one of the highest. We are currently at 39.3%. That's the gap in payment that women get versus men. So we organized a conference about that. And what we did was not only we talked about the gap, but also we gave alternative options for women or create awareness of how you can fund the gap. And one of the things that we talked about profusely is there are a lot of women who are now approaching retirement age who either through separation or through staying at home, taking care of their children or their relatives, or because they work part-time, they're finding themselves that they are at poverty level because they don't have enough pension coming in. So those are some of the things that we do. Now in the coming months, we're going to be organizing another conference on succession. and how the law and what it entails. Because there are a lot of surprises that happen. And most women do not know their rights when it comes to succession. And the other thing that is very passionate for me, the other subject, is women and finance. I've found throughout the years, excuse me, and this is not just the Maltese thing, that women, when it comes to finances, they kind of shy away and they say, oh, no, there's something I don't want to deal with. But I went to a talk last year and I was very surprised how young women today here in Malta are so oblivious on certain things that they should be aware of. Like, for example, their bank accounts, whether they should have a joint bank account with their spouses or an individual one. Sorry, about insurance. Sorry about this. Insurance, and also about retirement funds. So we're organizing another conference to create awareness.
I've attended one of those conferences, and they are very educational. And I think you need to know your rights. You need to know what you ought to be asking for, at least the minimum.
Exactly. And then we also work on the pay gap, higher representation, especially women on boards, and that's C-level positions, and also, giving the rights to women in the workplace. So we do a lot of activities. We also network with other clubs throughout the world. We organize twinning. We also sometimes take group from here, from Malta, and meet other members of BPW in other countries. For example, we did an exchange with Estonia, where a group of women came here and they met with female entrepreneurs. And then we did the same exchange. Oh, thank you very much. So that's some of the things that we do. There's a lot, but
In
I
a
can go.
nutshell.
Exactly.
I know you do a lot of work, all
Yes.
of you. As you can see, you can start seeing how these different women are targeting different communities of women. And why women? Because we need to talk about them not as minority groups. We are definitely not a minority group. It's half the population at least, and we give birth to all the community. So please give us credit for that. So I want to now go to the individual, to yourselves. What inspired you to pursue this career in your respective fields?
I come from a banking background, finance background. I moved to New York in 1984. And one of the roles that I had was a relationship officer for Italian companies doing business. And I found myself that many times I was the only woman in the group. When you're in this big room, there are, hundreds of bankers over there, and then there's one woman. I made it a mission in my life to change the dynamics, right? And, where you become part of the group. You talk about the same subject matters so they don't exclude you. You learn what is necessary to participate in the conversations. You ask the pertinent questions to the corporations, especially when they're doing their bankers meeting, talking to them. So, and I wanted to make sure, and especially when I came back to Malta, that women are comfortable enough to raise their hand, speak up, and ask the questions. Because I think that's one of the biggest issues we have as women. We tend to shy, we tend to stay back and not ask the tough questions. So that is what motivates me to do what I do.
Amazing. Would you like to go ahead?
Well, I think similarly as an architect, I tend to find myself in the company of men, and it never struck me until until a few years ago, I think. But yes, in the course, we were 3 or 4 women out of, it must have been 80, something like that. And by the end of that, it was less because, people decide they want to pursue another path. But yes, it was about four of us with about over a cohort of 40, I suppose, graduating in my year as architects. Yes. But it didn't, at the time, it didn't feel strange somehow. Well, I always got on well with, whether you were a woman or a man. But recently, I think for me, the penny dropped, and I realized that, yes, it does make a difference to be better represented in certain spheres. And then I started really realizing how underrepresented in certain spheres we are. And I think, even working then later as a planner, Often around the table, I'm the only woman. Often I'm the youngest, for example. Again, it's because there are less architects. I think gradually, I lecture now, yes, and it's far more balanced. So I think my students sitting on that table will be better represented because there are more of them now. So it's very nice to see, very nice to see a much more even split, in front of me and with me in the lecture hall. And it becomes the norm then to see many different faces around the table, And so that's encouraging, I think, because it's often hard, no, to be in a room and that you're trying to make your voice heard. And I have encountered cases where I am actively ignored, or I'm asked to make the tea.
Or take
often,
notes.
or take notes.
Oh, no.
So I've had to, make an effort to dress differently, for example, or to make sure I raise my voice, which is not something I believe in necessarily. If you have a message to impart, you shouldn't need to raise your voice necessarily. But yes, I've had to cope, and I suppose everyone, I think, in this room in one way or another can relate, no? You have to develop coping mechanisms just because you are a woman. And I hope my daughter finds an easier place,
We're working towards that.
That's right.
We're working. Chiara.
So I sort of chose the route of psychology because I was very interested in it, and not as a counter offense to men. And I also...
No, we're not against men.
No, not at all. But I think in a way, as a woman, you always have to bear in mind that the environment is somewhat dominated by a male model. And, if you work in a corporate environment or in an organization, chances are you have quite a lot of male bosses. And, so even the leadership model that is mainstream is assertive, is socially dominant, is somewhat authoritarian, which tend to equate with a male person more than a female, generalizing, of course. So I think in my case, I tried to develop my own path because I wanted to be a good professional, because I wanted to be a good mom, because I wanted to be in control of my own time. And then that comes with obviously pros and cons, because sometimes obviously you have the whole responsibility of being self-employed. But I think that was also a way in which I just wanted to create my own model. And I think working in industries, you meet a lot of women that tend to mimic a leadership model that is, I think, obsolete. It's not rewarding to women's competences, to women's skills, and to what, frankly, I think now leadership needs more and more from men and from women, not just unilaterally. So I think that's
a great point. We will be.
Well, I'm a mum of a boy and a girl, so I think in general it would be important to consider that going forward, a type of leadership that is more functional and less on that sort of spectrum of dominant would be, I think, more effective.
What inspired you?
Well, I went into women's rights, I think, through my own personal experience. I come from a family of 7. I'm the youngest. We were 5 girls and 2 boys. And I remember growing up on Saturday, I always had duties to do. They gave me the downstairs toilet. I had to really clean it every Saturday. And my brothers never got that task, They didn't even have any tasks, They just went out and enjoyed themselves. And I used to get so angry, and I was feeling this anger. And I couldn't, nobody was talking about it. Nobody was, I was feeling the frustration. And my older sister, she was a teacher and she used to buy Cosmopolitan, the magazine. And this magazine was full of the usual things, usually about sex, and then a lot of makeup. But they had a political editor who used to write. Her name was Leslie Abdallah. I eventually met her. And she used to write about women's rights. And I used to wait for this magazine every month when my sister used to buy it. I was still too young, and just devour whatever Leslie Abdallah used to say. And I used to say, yes, this is what I want to do. You know, like, it's not fair that I am cleaning the bloody toilet and my brothers are out, you know, enjoying themselves. And I now have a name for it, you know, like it's called inequality, and I want to do something about it. It wasn't a linear path, you know, like when I was 17, I fell in love, and I thought the best thing I could do was to become a secretary, you know, like, so very stereotypical. To cut a long story short, then I had my 2 children, and when I was about, I think, over 30 already. My sister, who was a teacher, you know, because I used to be very good at school, and she said, why don't you go to university? There's a course, you know, about this thing that you like. And I said, oh, there's actually a course. And yes, there was this diploma in gender studies. And I said, I'll try. And the moment I went in, I really liked it, you know, like, because I had found what I wanted to do. Suddenly, my concept had a name. There was a theory for it. You know, I could start discussing about this issue. Eventually, you know, I did this little diploma. It was just 2 years. And I said, I'm not stopping here. And eventually I did my master's in the UK and my PhD. And now I actually offer this diploma to other women. And I have seen, you know, it's very satisfying to see women coming, women who think they don't have the rights I don't know, attitude, or perhaps they don't have even the O levels, because we take them for this course even if they don't have A levels. We just, they have an interview and they have to pass the English proficiency test. And if they do that, then we, you know, like, we give them training on how to speak, etc., etc. And it's, I think, one of the most satisfying things that the little course that I did is now helping other women and giving them a voice too, because I think there's still a lot that needs to be done.
So now I want to go to the challenges, as you are in different leading roles. So what are the challenges you're facing still nowadays that you would like to start fighting? We can start from you, so go this way and that way.
In my work environment, I work with 2 wonderful men, and I can say that in an academic environment I've been very privileged, because we support each other, we take it in turns to become the leader, you know, so there isn't, and thankfully, you know, the 2 men I work with are very much in line with you know, we share the same values. When it comes to the organization, women's organization, the biggest challenge is funding. We don't get any funding at all. So whatever we do it on top of all the work that we do, on top of the family, and we do it because we believe it. But we don't get one single penny. And that's something which I've been fighting against and hoping that as women's organizations, you know, the government gives money for the band clubs, they give them property worth millions, but women's organizations, we don't get anything. So for me, that's the biggest challenge. And the fact that women's issues are still not a priority in our country, sadly.
If I can split the question into some, from a personal level, the barriers, the challenges I encountered, I think were mainly that of, as a woman, it was that of sort of being able to establish yourself as a professional in front of, you know, older male and leaders that question your ability intrinsically as a woman. So in that respect, I think my method was to maybe come out a little bit of the game, or I enjoyed it for a while, but then always rely on competence. So I think it's important, you know, to know your stuff and to really invest into competence and what you like and what you want to do, to push in that direction. I think eventually it gets recognized. And then in terms of Spark 15, I think there's a lot of barriers are not being able to be fully integrated in society. So there's huge amounts of stereotypes and misconception towards the population of refugee and asylum seekers. And that is a barrier per se. This prevents from recognizing some of the incredible skills that this group of people could bring into our society. You know, we have a society which is made up of a lot of individuals that feel entitled. So things like resilience, like determination, like the ability to persevere. And these are all skills that they have demonstrated because their journey has and should be recognized positively. The other aspect is funding and capacity building. So helping, finding local partners, whichever shape and form, could be an individual, could be an organization that give them the time to impart knowledge and impart skills so that we can see more and more fully integrated members into our society. It's anachronistic to think that that's going to go away.
Oh no, let's not be naive. But it's good to talk about it, I think.
Yeah.
It's important. We shouldn't be naive.
Yeah.
I think I can build on what Kara was saying, in that I really think that you should build on your strengths. And I do feel as women, we have a particular set of strengths. Mm-hmm. So both at university and at Dawra Madwarna, I find like recently at an event, a Dawra Madwarna event, so we were in Floriana, and we had this big street party. So we had street games going on and so on. And a couple of women walked up to me and said, look, this looks like a super organization to be a part of. I'm like, why do you say that? Mm-hmm. She said, because I can see you. We collective, all the team of Dawra Madwarna, we were simultaneously taking care of the event. So organizing, making sure people are having fun, everyone's safe. And there were our kids, and we were simultaneously keeping an eye on them, and they were with us, and we were, doing it all at once. And they realized, these two ladies, and they said, like, this looks super. It's like an amazing voluntary work, because it doesn't mean that I leave the kids at home because I came out to do some voluntary work. Mm-hmm. And they were like, I need your card because I'd like to be a part of this because it will allow me to do that. And I mean, our kids are now all friends and they have lots of fun together. In summer we go swimming together. So it's kind of, we formed this band of friends, not only at our age, but even at the younger ones. And they are of all ages, but they attend the same events time after time. So they tend to become friends as well. And it really struck me that although we speak of placemaking and environmental issues, we're doing like another, really good piece of work, I can say, in forming this safe space that I spoke about before. And people are joining now because they know that it's very easy for them to combine roles and be mums and be activists. And be professionals at the same time. Mm-hmm. And another thing I want to say, maybe Anna, you can relate to this as well. In the lecture hall, it's so important, I feel, to bring myself as a woman to the students. And often I'm told, you're too lenient and you're too nice to them. Mm-hmm. And what I'm being is neither lenient nor nice. It's just, I feel I can be very compassionate. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel afraid to be compassionate with the students. I don't feel afraid to, just allow them to come and speak to me, to be approachable to them. And I don't know if it's a woman thing or if it's a character.
But could be a strength thing. So you're comfortable in your strengths and yourself to be able to open to others and give
I
them
think it's
support.
important. I mean, I don't feel that when I lecture, I should just, I mean, anyone can read some sort of theory, you know, or a book. That's not what we do. At least I don't feel it's my role. But I've been it's been commented, but almost in a negative light, when all I'm being is yes, someone, I mean, I had a different experience when
Emotionally intelligent.
Yes,
Yes,
I had no relationship to my lecturers, no relationship, and it felt very distant. And I think if we want to attract people now in general to academia, for example, or even to an activist organization, no,
Yes.
it's just you need to see the human behind that person over there, because, like you said, no, there always is a hierarchy. We're part of a structure, but that you remain human even though you're at different levels of that structure is important.
Yeah.
And I believe we can bring that to the table.
I think so. The challenge of, this is what I experienced, the challenge of letting me be me as a woman and as a compassionate person. You're always being, no, you don't be like that. You laugh too much. You love too much. Everything too much. Whereas I think we should have a society that allows for these soft intelligences.
Especially in
We're
the
missing them.
society we're living in.
We need it more
A
for our
mental health
well-being.
crisis, and with so many wars and with so much hatred, and I think the skills that we and the empathy that women often bring are fundamental in organizations and governments. I think it would be a much better world, and so if somebody tries to stop us, we shouldn't allow that to happen.
So I'm going to go for the last, about what challenges you've been going through, and then we'll open up and we'll make it more of a conversation. This is why we're here, to converse. So this was more like we opened up a bit, but then we're like women around the fire and talking, like back in time.
Yes.
Challenges you face.
The physical fire. Well, challenges, I think sometimes it's life in general. You plan for the future and then something happens and everything changes, which is what happened with me. It was unexpected. My husband got sick. It was unexpected that we returned to Malta. We did. Sometimes most of it was pressure from the family, because we were there all alone. You're all alone, you need help. But then, so your life changes completely. So you have to adapt, right? And I think that's the beauty sometimes of women. But we end up doing multiple things, or we take on more things. Like I became a carer for my husband. I still work part-time. I took on the NGO for my own sanity more than anything else, to be perfectly honest, because you do need to take care of yourself. One thing that I've always learned, if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of anybody else around you. So, that in itself is a challenge. To pick up on what Anna said earlier is, there is absolutely no funding for female NGOs, none whatsoever. We all are volunteers, and we work as hard as we possibly can, most of us. I don't sleep much, so I work a lot at night. I send a lot of emails out at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning sometimes, but that's okay. It's because I'm passionate about it. Because I don't think anybody will actually do that. For me, the biggest challenge is, even from the part of the NGO, is we live in such a male-dominated society. There's such a boys' club. I mean, trying to get women on board. If you look at all the boards around Malta, whether they're parastatal or corporation, you'll see that it's always the same individuals, and they're on 10, 20 boards, but they don't really leave room for anybody new to come in. So, a lot of women, although they're very accomplished and they really know their subject matter and they can add so much value to that board, are left out, are locked out. So that's one of the things that I find challenging personally from myself, from my aspect. I'm also on the Consultative Council for Women's Rights, where we promote changes or propose changes in the laws in Malta to benefit women more than where we are right now. Because for those of you who may not be aware, a lot of the laws, they benefit men, but when it comes to women, it has to go through the male partner. or
I'm so
parent.
surprised. You shocked me. Really?
So, we try to change that. And it's been a battle ever since I started. I was there from the very beginning. And we started with equality, which was supposed to be 50-50. Then we ended up with 60-40, because obviously you can't propose 50% from day one because you'll never get it. So we went to 60-40. Next step down was, no, we have to take the 40% and change it to underrepresented sex, which basically meant male as wholes in one area and everybody else, which was women, LGBTIQ, people with disabilities, everything else compiled to one. So you're looking at taking that 40%, bringing it down to probably for women, not even 30%, if you're looking at women as individuals. So those for me are very frustrating, because when you work very hard, and there was a large group of women coming from the university and different organizations, and you're getting nowhere. And the more you push, one thing that I find happens over here, somehow then things get distributed between the other ministries and you never hear anything from anybody else. And then to top it off, I find that we don't support ourselves either. There was a lot of fighting for the change of higher representation for women in parliament. And you know where that happens? Women got less votes than ever. There were less women originally voted into parliament than ever historically. So then the trigger mechanism kicked in, and yes, we have higher. So we need to support ourselves. We need to support other women who are out there trying to empower us for whatever it is. If there are women who are, fighting for you to be able to have a seat at the table, or for you to have a woman representing us in parliament, support them. This is what, otherwise we're never going to get anywhere. I'm going to add one other thing that I find fascinating. This is from my background. The VC funds in Europe, when you look at women entrepreneurs who get VC fund, out of the trillions that are distributed, women-owned businesses only get 3.5% of that. 3.5%. When it is co-owned between men and women, that statistic goes up to 5.8%. The rest of it goes to only male-owned businesses. So this is where we need to stand up and talk and speak. And we have to be prepared. We have to ask the questions, and we have to ask for what we want. So those are my frustrations.
That's why we have this. The project is called Vucijiet Beltin, so Voices of Valletta, but obviously voices of everyone, not Valletta, everyone. And when I see refugees, if we can't, as locals, be represented, then where does that leave refugees? So underrepresented, even worse. This is so painful for me, hearing all this. So I want to open up to you, beautiful audience. We have a roaming mic there, right behind you. Thank you, Grayson. So if anyone has a comment, a question, otherwise we'll just continue rambling. And I would like this to be more about us, how it should be, yes.
Thank you, and thank you for this opportunity to be here. I have two comments, actually. The first one is, I'm rather surprised at myself that I have not heard of these NGOs before today. I've heard of the Women in Business. I'm kind of familiar with what you have mentioned, but the other organizations have just passed over my head. And I can read, I work. I thought I knew things happening in this country, but it seems that I don't. So sadly, I've been missing out, and I almost feel bad for not knowing about these. Not bad as in bad, I'm not, but I feel I should know about them. So that's my personal reaction. My apologies for having been so honest about this, but I'm...
No, it's good. It's good. That's why we're here. That's why I'm very happy that I could offer this space.
My second comment is actually related to my job, to my profession. I'm a speech-language pathologist by profession, so I'm coming from the health sector, where there are a lot of women. And we tend to forget, or personally, I have, over the years, because of my work, forgotten that other women in this country or in this world are actually struggling to make the presence felt, because there are so many women. So I was at university and it was 11 women and 1 man. And then when we were practicing, it was a lot of women. So we had different struggles, of course, but there was a lot of women. So there are some environments where...
The caring environment.
Yes, and a lot of health in general, I believe, where women are selected because there's so many of them, they end up being chosen. And probably that is the reason, because the numbers are what they are. So for me, it's like a reality check to actually remember that there are people who are struggling at work and in these situations. So thank you for sharing it, because I think I wasn't getting it as well as I should have been.
One of the things that perhaps needs to be highlighted is at the place of work, there's a study which shows that Maltese women, 3 out of every 4 Maltese women actually get sexually harassed at the place of work. 3 out of 4. So that's nearly everyone. At European level, there are studies which show more or less the same, but there isn't one country where women working with men, there is at least 1 in every 2 women being sexually harassed at the place of work. So something simple like a woman going to work today, I'm not talking about 50 years ago, I'm using recent data, you know? So something simple, you know, like going to work, and on top of your work, you have to fend off, you know, somebody trying to touch you, somebody trying to, you know, send you jokes which you don't want to hear. The worst could be, you know, somebody actually trying to rape you or to. So, you know, something as simple as going to work as a woman today, these are things you don't. Perhaps we're not talking about them as well, because if you ask a lot of women, they might be very hesitant, you know. It's very difficult to speak about these issues because it's tough, you know, like, and the moment you speak, then the tide turns against you very often. So, you know, it's simple things. It's like walking home alone at night. If you have a young girl, even as a woman, and as you grow up, you continue looking behind you, you know, because you don't feel safe. So it's the very simple things in life which we take for granted. But being a woman...
You've just reminded me. So I was taking a friend home, a male friend, and I dropped him off on the other side of a subway, and I asked him, do you mind taking the subway? Is it all right, or shall I? And he looked at me like I was a bit cuckoo. And I'm like... He said, yeah, of course I don't mind. And then it clicked. And he said, oh, that's why you're asking me, because you would consider it. And
it's all our lives that we keep.
You know, for me, it's an obvious thing. I would
us.
think twice before using a subway, but yeah.
I've had a group of actor friends who've just done a play about this, and they took it up to Edinburgh. That's the subject of walking safely home.
Yes.
And
so
it's not safe at
you know,
all.
like doing basic things, and we still can't.
But any more comments? Yes.
So first and foremost, thank you all for your insights. It's lovely to hear things and identify with most of the issues that you have mentioned. I come from the corporate world, so I work at Malta Enterprise. I take care of foreign direct investment there. So it's quite a man's world, so to speak. Luckily, we're quite well represented at C-suite level. So I would say at least 25% of us are women, which at C-suite, at C-level, is quite a good percentage if you compare with other corporations. You touched on the subject of emotional intelligence, and it's something that I feel quite strongly about, because I think that women actually have a sixth sense, like an extra gear. We can read the room, we can read feelings, sometimes too much, we can get the vibe, we can understand what's going through in other people's heads, and this is something that men dismiss a lot. And sometimes, rather than being seen as a strength, it's labeled, the infamous label, you're too sensitive. And I think it is our duty as women in the workplace to show that that is actually a strength. The fact that we can read a room, that we can catch vibes, I find that it's like a superpower sometimes, but it's labeled and dismissed as being too sensitive.
May I? Well, when I work on, with individuals, either leadership development or coaching, and a lot of them are obviously men and in the corporate environment, and a lot of them are quite high up. And so to me, it's what is almost ironic is that, to get all the way up, then there's a lot of confidence, assertiveness, and pushing. And but then I get called in, and a lot of the work I do would be maybe on teaching how to delegate, teaching that how to take into account other people's perspective, teaching soft skills like communication, because we no longer live in a society where it doesn't matter what other people that work around you, you have to draw from their experiences, their competences, and then you have to delegate because you can't do possibly everything yourself. You would fail. So the idea that a woman or a person who has an ability and a need, and therefore has developed that skill to read the other people's needs or whatever other intangible information, of course is important, and it's actually considered strategic at some level. So it might be a way of disregard. You're too emotional and you're displaying emotion and but in reality, it's proven that soft skills make the difference in terms of leadership, because you're like a director of an orchestra where everybody has competences, talents, skills, and you are a good leader if you can make use of them to the best of everybody's ability and result. If you can't, then maybe you're just the old-fashioned boss with the stick and the carrot, hopefully.
If I may, especially coming to the corporate world, I think we have to understand, everybody needs to learn and understand that men and women, they manage, they think, and they reach decisions very differently from each other. And this is why we believe that there has to be equal participation, because the combination of the two strengths is what leads to important and accurate decisions, right? Men, I find that most of them, they just say, oh yes, let's do this and then we'll figure it out. Women think 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 times before actually they reach a decision. But we need to be heard, we need to speak up. And I'm glad that you have a 25% representation at the C-suite level. It's not very common. It's very rare. And I was reading an article recently where we're still at the point where it's going to take us at least 300 years more to get to the equality level. So we need to speak up more now, so maybe we can accelerate it.
I will distribute gramophones, not really, I don't. Just make it out of a piece of cardboard and shout. I'm sorry, I have to make a light of it.
Yes, no, that's
it's
fine.
true though.
If I can add
Yes, please.
Sorry, add something very quickly. There's actually scientific studies which show that the collective intelligence of a group, so decision making, actually improves when you have both women and men, because they bring in different things. There have been arguments that if it wasn't instead of the Lehman Brothers, it was the Lehman Sisters, probably we wouldn't have the financial crisis, because, for example, women are a little bit more averse to risk. So as you rightly said, they consider things more. So they need to balance each other out, like even women ask more questions. So the process of decision making actually improves when you have both women and men. And this is, there are scientific studies which confirm this. So we don't just need women just for the sake, but
Of course.
We need them to make better decisions about the world, you know.
Thank you for this. Yes, very interesting topic. My studies last year were actually women in C-suite level in the aviation sector, which worldwide in the world there will not be 50 women in C-level in the coming years. The women that are there because they went up the ladder, as to say, but you will not find women going in such. It's quite a risky position. And from the interviews, I carried out qualitative and quantitative. I wanted to get out with, and I wanted to ask you as well, whether you believe that the gender quota, can help in, especially for Malta, to have women representation. I would like to ask you, and then I can obviously inform you about my findings.
I'll go first. It's a double-edged sword. This is how I feel about it, because I think if you have publicly traded companies and you put in a system where they have to abide by it, or there is some sort of repercussion, in that area it's going to work. But I think in Malta, if you look at the percentage split between publicly traded company and family-owned business or private enterprises, how are you going to monitor it? How are you going to make them actually increase the number of women at the C-suite level? So it's a bit difficult. There are countries who are managing. Like, for example, I was talking to someone in France, and they've passed laws about this, and they're actually creating penalties for companies that do not reach a certain minimum level of female representation at the management and the C-level and the board levels. So I think it's difficult to implement here in Malta, but we do need some sort of, not guidance, some sort of regulations that say you need to meet these levels and you get a benefit. I think if we put it that way, probably there will be more companies that will try to abide.
So we do have extra, let's say, benefits in case if it's women-run companies. And I come from the government sector, mind you. I am executive secretary for a region. So really and truly, my representation there, I can't say that I would say it's 50-50. Let's put it this way. Obviously, the more you go up the ladder within the government sector, if you go up to the PERMSEC level, no, it's not represented. But as you are saying, so yes, but don't you think that, obviously I will let you know what from my studies, if they were nearly all against the gender quota. After, obviously, I carried out the interview, whatever, and then I said, but how do you think that it can work? Obviously, then everyone started to think, yes, but maybe, true, because we're still so underrepresented. So what do you think is going to be best? I mean, how are you going to balance this out? Obviously, there's a lot of criticism about it, because I was in the ministry when this was in, and it's not something that I personally believed in, but then when you see the numbers, and as you said, so it's in 300 years' time when we're going to get a woman, something has to kick off. How are we going to get? If there wasn't the gender quota for parliament, we would not have women members as much as we had 20 years ago, 30 years ago. And it's I mean, now the parliament is meeting at 4, for example, so there are more, as to say, family-friendly measures, because, I mean, friendly, if it's not for women, if it's not for men, it's not even for women, or vice versa. I don't believe that. But you need a mechanism, yes, definitely you need.
I would say that something like that is a forced cultural change. So it's forced. A quota is just a way to sort of impose a population, and then that hopefully over time it makes everybody, because we are people and animals of habit. So you just get used seeing a certain number of women or people around, and then. But over time, if you do not act on the biases that have brought us to a exclusively male-dominated scenario, then it still remains a formal act.
Yeah.
Yes, but it needs, something needs to, I mean, if it's not this, then someone has to come up with something. Because, I mean, everyone is ready to criticize. I'm not here defending anything. It's just a matter of how I see things. And when I had the respondents, everyone against nearly the gender quota, I was like, okay, so then when you ask them, what do you think? What kind of no one would tell you. I mean, I did the interviews to people in C-level in themselves. So
Mostly men.
no, I did try to balance that, and
So even the women were telling you.
yes, this was a surprise to me actually. I thought I would get different results, and both the qualitative and the qualitative were the same.
And what were their reasons? What were their fears?
There are various fears. It's a whole thing. It's quite complex. If I had to mention, because mostly when women go in, they go up the ladder. That's different. Women do not think like, if in my position, would I tend to go for the aviation? It's still managing. It's still maybe, but no, you wouldn't go. It's a very specific sector. Let's put it this way. It's not something that. And it's male-dominated, so it's 95% male. That's why.
A lot of the Nordic countries where they made progress, they had some form of quotas, which is the only way you jolt the system. For example, in relation to the quotas in parliament, what we know is that once a woman makes it to parliament, just the fact that she is there, she's more visible, the electorate will have more time to get to know her as a person and so on, the chances of being re-elected are greater then. So hopefully with this cohort of women that have made it through the quota, next time being incumbents, the power of incumbency will give them, and the numbers will continue to increase.
Yes, but there's a couple of things. Last year we held debates for all the female candidates. We invited all the parties. You have no idea the hard time we got from the parties to get female candidates to come on these debates. It was incredible.
What's the reason?
I don't know. 11:30 at night, the night before the next morning when having the debate, I still didn't have the names of the candidates. They would not give us the names. They wouldn't. And I had candidates.
To speak because.
Yes. I had candidates calling me, say, I want to be on the debate. I said, sorry, you're welcome, but your party has to approve your presence. And this was all parties, especially the two main ones. So that's the first thing. We need women to be given a voice. And it has to start. Unfortunately, we're in a very patriarchal society. We need to change that. Unless there's a fundamental change to that, things are going to be moving very, very, very slowly. So we need that to change. I also, somebody who was a member of BPW, she gave her first speech as a candidate. And she said to me, do you mind if you critique it a bit? I said, sure, And I was listening, she said it was on this channel, at this time, on this day, there was a whole, those tent meetings. So I listened to her. So there was this guy who was a new candidate before her. He went on and on and on and on for 22 minutes talking. Then they introduced her. And at 2 minutes, 0.56 seconds, they shut her microphone. She stopped talking. And I called, and I said to her, next time, have something else to say, be a little bit more prepared, you need an ending. She goes, no, they cut me off. They cut my microphone. They would not let her speak more. So those are the things we need to talk about. Those are the things that need to change. We also need, because one of the other things we hear as BPW very, very often is women come and say, oh no, my husband is always saying, no, God forbid my wife goes to work. I can keep her at home. She doesn't need to work. It's still happening in 2023. We're not talking 10, 15 years ago, we're talking 23. The third thing that we need is we need a change in law that when it comes to caring, it cannot be gender biased. It cannot be females. It cannot be the mother who is the carer, who needs to take, a mother's leave or mother care, whatever. It needs to be parental leave. These things need to change, and we need a sweeping change to make sure, first of all, we're seeing more fathers who are willing to stay at home and take care of the children, so we need to include them and give them the benefits. Benefits are there, you're right, but the thing is, we need the law to support them. Like, you know,
Unfortunately, we had the Work-Life Balance Directive, which
Yeah.
came into force not this August, last year.
Yeah.
And as women's organizations, we were hoping government would, implement this directive, which had to be transposed into local legislation, into something that would bring about change, which would encourage fathers, for example, to take parental leave. We didn't manage to have access to the minister. We tried. I tried using my cap as an academic with my other team of men. I was asking them to call, and we never got an appointment. And then the law came out in its worst form possible. I mean, if you are paying parents on parental leave 23 euros a day, I mean, who can afford to get by on 23 euros a day?
Exactly.
We had an excellent opportunity. We're spending so much money on so many stupid things. But when it comes to caring, and caring is vital. I mean, if you don't care for a baby, the baby will die, and you're only paying 23 euros a day. I mean, so is any father going to take parental leave? No,
exactly.
Because 23 euro is an insult. It's not enough. So, as a country, we are not giving these things the importance they merit. And we are being blocked in spite of all the knocking that we do. So please, if you have ideas how to help us, approach me, because sometimes I feel like giving up.
I do feel that there is a certain amount of sort of self-criticism also as women, as mothers. We have this great advantage of actually being the one with access to the kids, and make sure that both boys and girls get the same opportunities, get the same narrative, get the same amount of cleaning toilets, and also.
It's an important story.
But I think this is really a moment where not only women need to re-examine how they perceive themselves and their level of confidence, and thinking, well, yeah, maybe I could be a leader one day, or maybe he can stay home tonight and iron or something. But also, I think that boys are very much failed in having a role model that is sort of in keep with the times, with the man that actually does some cooking or looks after the kids and is a good father and helps mum up, and there are quite a few of them. It's just they're not very advertised.
The role models, Andrew Tate. I don't know what you've heard about Andrew Tate.
Yeah, he's got a good marketing team behind. No.
I actually wanted to add two things. First, to continue on the paternal side of things, there are actually recent studies which show that children which do not have an active father figure in their lives actually grow up to be more at risk of being involved in being in juvie or going to jail, because they do not have that father figure in their lives, surprisingly. So it is very important to actually have both sides in a stable family, I guess, so to say. And I also wanted to comment about the aspect of the female qualities that we were mentioning earlier, that oftentimes they're commented as being very negative, but also on the other side, that when women take on more masculine qualities, they're often also referred to being as negative, and sometimes being assertive it's called being aggressive, or sometimes being called, excuse the word, a bitch. So sometimes it's very hard to balance out what people want, because what men want, because they don't want you being compassionate, yet they don't want you being assertive. It's like, what do you want from me? I still want my voice to be heard. I still have a good opinion, and they will agree on that, but they don't want to hear it from a woman sometimes, and I think that's actually very sad.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be here. So what I want to say concerning the men, I can say most women are facing a lot in the hands of men, because like I say, in marriage, sorry to put this, so in marriage, there are places women have the voice to speak, but they cannot speak because of why? They will say the women are disrespectful, they don't obey the men. So in aspect of taking care of the children, just like I can say for my society, for my country where I came from, this is what we are mostly facing in my society. And I wish I can have the opportunity to shift this to my country. I will be so happy because we are facing a lot in the hands of our men. Doing this in the domestic home, they want us to do everything for the kids, to take care of the kids, work, do everything. Just for them to be there, maybe pressing their phone, chatting with things that is not relevant, things that is not meaningful, just for them to be there. But while we, the women, running around in the house, taking care of the children, cleaning the house, doing many things. So these are things that is not supposed to be done. For example, maybe there is a fight in the house, home violence, they will say home violence. What if they want to judge it? Sometimes they will say the women are the fault. And whereas we are not the fault, because there are things we are passing through, there are things we are facing that we want to make the men to stop it, because we are humans. We are humans. They are human, we too, we are human. But they want to bring the women down because they said the women doesn't have power to speak, to say anything in the house. Even at work, I have a friend at work. She applies for manager in the work. So when they accept her to work there, but the moment they brought a man as an assistant, for just some weeks, everything would turn upside down against the woman. She was there, but suddenly they serve her a letter to let her know that she doesn't supposed to be there. But when the woman wants to speak that, why? What happened? What have I done wrong? They told her, don't worry, we will settle it. But those are not, it's not necessary, it's not good. They make the women to feel like they are nothing to the society. And we are something. We are something to the society. And I can still use this opportunity to say, we as the parents, when we are bringing up our children, boys and girls, any domestic home, we need to share it for them. Don't let us look that you are a woman, you are the one that's supposed to do this. You are the man have to do this. No. If we want to clean the toilet, we want to clean the house, we have to share it for the men. Both boys and girls do everything. That is what, if we can start this in the society, I believe that the women will now have power, not to overpower the men, but we have voice to speak. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So now we have some snacks and wine, I think, just so that we can continue the chat. And please use it as a networking, you know. You're here, get to know each other.
Thank you, Anja.
You're welcome.